The galaxy was full of rules, but one rule was different from all others. It was not written in books. It was not forced by soldiers. It was something older, something carved into the stars themselves. The rule was simple: never enter Terran space. For thousands of years, this warning was passed down from one empire to the next. Maps showed a dark zone in the spiral arm of the galaxy, and across that zone was written a single word: forbidden. No one knew the full truth, but every empire knew the stories. Fleets that went into Terran space never returned. Whole armadas vanished without leaving even wreckage. Some captains laughed and thought the stories were lies, but no one was foolish enough to test them. At least, not until the Veil Dominion. The Veil were proud, strong, and cruel. Their empire stretched across 1,000 systems. Their armies crushed smaller races. Their fleets burned worlds into ashes. To them, fear was a weapon, and weakness was shame. When their council saw the forbidden zone on the map, they did not feel fear. They felt insulted. Who were these humans, these Terrans, to set such a rule? Were they gods? Were they even alive anymore? The Dominion believed humanity was long gone. Old records spoke of a war so brutal that the Terrans destroyed themselves. To the Veil, the ban was nothing more than an empty shadow from a dead people. Admiral Carvos of the Veil fleet stood on the command bridge of his flagship and stared at the edge of Terran space. Before him stretched dark stars and silent void. His fleet of 50 warships waited behind him. So this is it, he laughed. This is the space the galaxy fears? A graveyard of ghosts. His officers laughed with him. To them, this was an easy mission, a chance to break a legend and prove the strength of the Dominion. The admiral raised his hand, and the fleet engines roared to life. One by one, the warships crossed the invisible line into forbidden space. At first, nothing happened. No weapons fired. No ships appeared. The stars seemed empty, cold, and quiet. Too quiet. The crew on the bridge felt a strange pressure, as if the silence itself was watching them. Some whispered that it was wrong, that something unseen waited in the dark. But the admiral ignored their words. Legends are for children, he said. We will bring back proof that this Terran ban is a joke. As the fleet moved deeper, strange things began to happen. Navigation systems flickered. Sensors showed false readings. A destroyer reported seeing shapes moving near its hull, but when scanners focused, nothing was there. A heavy cruiser lost its communications for 3 full minutes, then reconnected with no explanation. Messages were scrambled with old codes, codes not used for thousands of years. One officer swore he saw a single word flash on his console: leave. He tried to show it, but the message was gone. The further they went, the stranger the space became. The stars looked dimmer. Energy spikes appeared and disappeared like whispers. Every system in the fleet began to feel colder, as if something drained their warmth. The crews grew nervous. Some spoke about the old stories, about how humans had once built weapons that could kill suns, weapons that even time itself could not erase. Admiral Carvos silenced them with harsh words. Fear is weakness, he shouted. We are the Dominion. We do not fear dead ghosts. Yet even he felt the weight of the silence. He stood tall, but his hands trembled. He could not show fear, not in front of his men. The mission was now a matter of pride. If they returned without proof, the galaxy would mock them. If they returned in defeat, the Dominion itself would question his strength. So he ordered the fleet forward, deeper into Terran space, past the border no empire dared to cross. And then, something happened. The stars around them shifted, almost too fast for the eye to notice. One officer gasped and pointed at the map. The fleet was moving in circles, though their engines burned straight. Something was twisting their path. The admiral demanded answers, but no one could explain it. Suddenly, the navigation map reset itself, but now every ship saw the same thing. They were no longer in control. Their fleet had been guided, drawn deeper into the forbidden zone. The bridge went silent. The crew waited for orders. The admiral's face was pale, his confidence fading. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, every screen on the bridge went black. The lights dimmed. The hum of the engines fell quiet. For a moment, the massive warship drifted in total darkness. Then, all at once, the screens flickered back to life. On every console, on every display, the same message appeared in bright, sharp letters. Not in alien language. Not in the code of the Dominion. But in ancient human script. The message was simple, but it froze every heart in the room. The admiral clenched his fists. He wanted to order his fleet forward, to prove the warning false. But deep inside, he felt something he had never felt before, something older than fear. The feeling that the legends were not lies. The ban was not a joke. And by crossing into Terran space, the Dominion had made the worst mistake in the history of the galaxy. The warning glowed on every console. Turn back. The words were sharp, ancient, and heavy with meaning. The bridge crew stared at them in silence. Some officers shifted in their seats, their voices trembling as they whispered about curses, about old stories they had laughed at before. But Admiral Carvos only gritted his teeth. He refused to show weakness. "It is a trick," he said with anger in his voice. "Some old machine left running in this dead zone. We are warriors of the Dominion. We do not run from shadows." His words were strong, but his eyes betrayed doubt. The fleet moved deeper into Terran space. The stars grew stranger. Constellations that had always been familiar now looked bent, like they were being pulled out of shape. On the destroyer Velen, the crew reported hearing voices in their communication systems. They swore they heard human speech, low whispers that made no sense. The chief engineer tried to clear the signal, but the more he worked, the louder the whispers became. Finally, one word cut through clearly in the human tongue: leave. The engineer froze, staring at his console as the voice repeated the word again and again until the sound died in static. On the cruiser Marek, the ship's logbook was suddenly filled with entries no one had written. The words were human. They spoke of battles fought centuries ago. They spoke of Terran fleets burning across the stars, fighting against enemies the Dominion had never even heard of. One line chilled the captain's heart: "We do not die. We wait." He tried to delete the entries, but each time, they returned. Rumors spread through the fleet like wildfire. Crews spoke in hushed voices about ghosts, about Terrans who still haunted the stars. Some said the humans had never been destroyed, that they had simply gone silent to prepare for the next war. Some claimed the old stories were true, that the Terrans had built machines with minds of their own, guardians that could wait for centuries. The officers tried to keep order, but fear had already begun to poison the crews. Then, the first ship vanished. The light cruiser Zavros sent a distress call, screaming that something was pulling them into the dark. The call cut off mid-sentence. When the fleet scanned the area, there was nothing. No ship. No wreckage. No life signs. It was as if the Zavros had been erased from existence. The admiral's face grew hard, but inside he felt dread. He told the fleet it was a malfunction, an accident, but no one believed him. The crews whispered, the ghosts of old Earth had taken them. Hours passed. More strange events unfolded. A supply ship's entire crew fell into unconscious sleep at the same time, without reason. They woke up with words carved into the walls of their quarters, words no alien hand could write. They were human letters, rough and deep. "Do not come further." Another warship reported seeing a shape outside their windows. At first it looked like debris, then like a ship, then like a massive shadow that drifted just beyond the light. When they turned sensors toward it, nothing was there. But when they turned away, the shadow returned. Admiral Carvos called a meeting of his captains. His face was stern, but his voice was sharp with hidden fear. "We cannot be frightened by tricks," he told them. "If humans still live, then we will crush them. If this is only machines left behind, then we will tear them apart. The Dominion does not bow to old myths." But one captain spoke up, his voice shaking. "Admiral, what if it is not machines? What if the humans are truly here, watching us? The ban was made for a reason. The room fell silent. Carvos slammed his hand on the table. Silence! We are not cowards. The Dominion does not retreat. The meeting ended, but the doubt remained in every captain's heart. That night, across the fleet, the ghosts became louder. Soldiers in their bunks heard voices whispering in human tongues. Some saw faces on their screens, pale human faces staring at them before vanishing. Entire crews reported dreams of Earth, a blue planet they had never seen. They dreamed of oceans, mountains, and endless cities of glass and steel. They dreamed of a people who had once ruled the stars with unmatched power. And in every dream, the same final image appeared, the eyes of a Terran, staring at them with cold fire. The fear turned into panic when another ship was lost. This time, the battleship Carven, one of the strongest in the fleet, vanished. Its last message was short, a scream of terror, followed by static. The admiral ordered a full scan of the area, but there was nothing left. The fleet was shrinking, one ship at a time. The Dominion's proud fleet was now trembling in the dark, lost and hunted by something unseen. Admiral Carvos stood on his bridge, his hands gripping the rail so tightly his claws dug into the metal. He could feel the fear spreading through his men. He could feel the eyes of something ancient watching them. He thought of the ban, the warning that had been mocked by the Dominion. He thought of the stories of old Earth, the ghosts that no one believed in. And for the first time in his life, he wondered if the stories had always been true. The fleet continued forward, deeper into the dark. But now, every step felt like walking into a grave. The silence was no longer empty. It was alive. It pressed against their minds. And every man and woman in the fleet understood one thing. They were not alone in Terran space. The ghosts of old Earth had awakened. The fleet of the Veiled Dominion drifted deeper into Terran space, but now the silence felt heavier than ever. Every officer, every soldier, every crew member felt it pressing on their chest. The whispers had not stopped. Shadows moved on screens, words appeared and vanished, and ships had disappeared without leaving wreckage. The warning signs were everywhere, yet Admiral Carvos refused to turn back. He stood on the command deck of his flagship, his voice hard, his orders sharp. We are warriors of the Dominion. We will not bow to ghosts. We will find the truth and claim this cursed zone for our empire. His words were strong, but his hands trembled. Then it happened. Without warning, one of the Veil destroyers lit up in flames. There was no signal of attack, no missile strike, no laser beam. One moment it floated calmly among the fleet, and the next it exploded into a burning ball of fire. The bridge of Carvos's ship shook as the shockwave rolled across space. The crew gasped. What hit them? One officer shouted. Scanners scanned every direction, but nothing appeared. No enemy. No ship. No movement. It was as if the destroyer had been erased by an invisible hand. Before the admiral could speak, another cry filled the comms. A heavy cruiser screamed for help. Its hull was tearing apart, its shields collapsing. The image appeared on the main screen, shards of metal ripping away from the ship's body as if some unseen weapon was cutting it open. In seconds, the cruiser was gone, split into pieces that drifted silently into the void. Panic spread across the fleet. Officers shouted, captains demanded answers, crews begged for orders. Carvos raised his voice over the chaos. Form defensive lines. All weapons ready. The enemy is here. The fleet spread out into formation, weapons charged, shields at full strength. But the scanners still showed nothing. The void was empty. And then, the void itself moved. From the darkness, a shape began to appear. It was massive, far larger than any Veil ship. At first it looked like a shadow stretching across the stars. Then its lines sharpened, its edges gleamed, and its hull reflected the faint light of distant suns. Gasps filled the fleet channels as the truth appeared before them. A warship. A Terran warship. It was old, but its design was like nothing the Dominion had ever seen. Its armor was thick, black as night, covered in scars from battles long past. Its weapons bristled like the spines of a beast. Strange markings ran across its sides, glowing faintly with ancient power. The Terran ship moved slowly, with the confidence of something that feared nothing. For centuries, the galaxy had whispered about ghosts in Terran space. Now the ghost was real, and it stood before them. Admiral Carvos felt his blood run cold, but he would not allow fear to win. "Fire!" he roared. "Fire everything!" The Dominion fleet obeyed. Beams of light, missiles, torpedoes, plasma blasts, all surged toward the Terran ship in a storm of destruction. The dark void lit up like 1,000 suns as the Dominion unleashed its fury. The blasts struck the Terran hull, exploding in waves of fire and energy. The bridge crew cheered, certain the enemy would be torn apart. But when the fire faded, the cheers died. The Terran warship was untouched. Its black hull still glowed faintly, unscarred. It had not even raised shields. Then it answered. From the sides of the Terran warship, beams of light shot out with terrifying precision. They were not like Dominion weapons. They did not explode or scatter. They simply cut. A single beam sliced through a Veil battlecruiser from front to back, splitting it cleanly in two. Another beam tore across 3 frigates at once, cutting them apart as if they were made of paper. A destroyer tried to run, but a single strike erased it in silence. In less than 1 minute, 5 warships of the Dominion fleet were gone. On the bridge of Carvos's flagship, fear filled the air. Officers froze at their stations, their eyes wide with terror. One whispered, "We cannot fight this. It is a monster." Another muttered, "The stories were true, the humans are still here." Carvos slammed his fist against the console. "Hold your ground. Fight. We are the Dominion." But even he could not deny the truth. The Terran ship was not just powerful. It was unstoppable. Then, across every Dominion channel, a voice spoke. It was calm, deep, and cold. The language was old, but the machines translated it instantly. Every alien in the fleet heard the words clearly. "This is your only warning. You have broken the ban. Leave now, or you will all be destroyed." The voice echoed through the ships like thunder. Some crews begged their captains to retreat. Others whispered prayers to their gods. But Admiral Carvos would not back down. He saw the destruction, he heard the warning, and still he refused to surrender. His pride, his fear of shame, and his belief in Dominion's strength bound him. He snarled at the voice, though it could not hear him. "We are not afraid of humans." The Terran ship waited in silence, its weapons still glowing. The fleet trembled, but no one moved. The standoff stretched on, the cold weight of death pressing closer with each second. And deep inside, every Veil officer and soldier knew the truth. The first strike was only a taste. The real nightmare had just begun. The Dominion fleet had been torn apart in moments. Dozens of ships destroyed, thousands of lives lost, all by one single Terran warship. The survivors fled in panic, their engines burning at full power as they escaped the darkness. They carried with them more than fear, they carried proof. The stories were true. The ban was real. And the humans were not gone. They had only been waiting. When the battered survivors finally reached Dominion space, the news spread like wildfire. Messages rushed across the Empire. Some were intercepted by spies of other empires, who read the reports with wide eyes. The words were always the same: a Terran warship had awakened. It had destroyed a Dominion fleet with ease. It had spoken, and its warning was clear: leave Terran space or face destruction. The Dominion Council met in secret on their homeworld. The great chamber was filled with voices, shouting and arguing. Some counselors demanded vengeance. They called the Terran ship a relic, a machine that could be destroyed with enough force. Others trembled and whispered that the ban should never have been broken, that the Dominion had brought death upon itself. The arguments grew louder, but no one could agree. Fear had entered the heart of the Dominion. Admiral Carvos, scarred from the battle, stood before the council. His voice was heavy, his pride wounded, but his rage unbroken. "We faced one ship," he said, "an ancient ghost. It destroyed us because we were unprepared. But give me another fleet, give me the full strength of the Dominion, and I will crush this Terran phantom." His words carried force, but his eyes betrayed his doubt. He had seen the truth up close, and deep inside he knew that even the might of the Dominion might not be enough. The news did not stay contained within the Dominion. Across the galaxy, empires whispered. The Krail Syndicate, the Orek Union, the Zereth clans, each received fragments of the reports. They read the same terrifying descriptions: black warship, impossible weapons, Dominion fleet destroyed. Some laughed, calling it propaganda, but their laughter was hollow. Deep in their hearts, they remembered the legends too. They remembered the old warnings, the ancient silence. Now the silence was broken, and the galaxy shivered. In markets and spaceports, rumors grew wild. Traders swore they had seen Terran ships drifting through hyperspace lanes. Smugglers told stories of human voices echoing on their comms. Soldiers whispered that the Terrans had armies hidden in the dark, waiting for the right moment to strike. Fear spread faster than truth, and for the first time in centuries, the galaxy began to look at the Dominion not with envy, but with pity. They had awakened the nightmare. On the Dominion homeworld, panic grew among the people. Families remembered the old stories passed down in whispers: "Do not enter Terran space, for those who do never return." Now their leaders had broken the law of the stars, and already fleets were burning. Citizens demanded answers. Riots broke out in some cities. Soldiers were forced to guard communication towers as fear turned into anger. The council tried to silence the truth, but it was too late. Every empire already knew. Some sent spies to watch the Dominion, curious to see what would happen next. Others prepared defenses around their own borders, afraid the Terrans might not stop with the Dominion. Secretly, many leaders felt relief. For centuries, they had feared being the one to break the ban. Now it was the Dominion who had made the mistake, and it was the Dominion who would pay. Meanwhile, far away in the dark, the Terran warship moved again. The Helios, as its nameplate read, drifted through forgotten systems, its ancient engines humming with quiet power. Its AI scanned the stars, reading every Dominion signal, tracking every fleet movement. Humanity had been silent for centuries, but the silence was over. The guardians of Terran space had awakened, and they were preparing. Back in the Dominion, a decision was made. The Council, torn between fear and pride, voted to send another fleet. This time not 50 ships, but 500. The greatest armada the Dominion had launched in centuries. Their purpose was simple: destroy the Terran ship, erase the myth, and restore the pride of the Empire. Factories roared to life, shipyards glowed with energy, and soldiers were forced into service. The Dominion would strike again. But among the officers, among the soldiers who had seen the first battle, doubt festered. They had seen beams of light cut through ships like paper. They had heard the Terran voice speak across the void. They had watched comrades vanish in silence. And they knew that 500 ships would not be enough. The ban was not a lie. The Terrans were not dead. The nightmare was real. In the shadows of the council chamber, one elder spoke softly, so softly that only a few heard. "The ban was not made to protect humans from us," he whispered. "It was made to protect us from them." His words lingered in the air like poison, but no one dared to answer. As the Dominion prepared its great fleet, the galaxy held its breath. Everyone knew the truth: the Terrans had given a warning, and warnings were not given twice. The next battle would not be a skirmish. It would be a storm. And when it came, the stars themselves might burn. The Dominion Armada was still being built when the first blow came. It was not the Dominion who struck, but the Terrans. The galaxy had waited to see if humans would remain inside their borders, but humanity did not wait. They moved first, and they chose their target with cold precision. Far from the Dominion homeworld, on the outer rim, lay the colony of Drevos. It was a proud colony, filled with mines, shipyards, and millions of citizens who believed they were safe. Drevos had never seen war on its soil. That night, it did. It began with silence. The colony's skies darkened as the stars above vanished, one by one, swallowed by enormous shapes. At first, the people thought it was an eclipse, a natural shadow. Then the alarms screamed. Dominion defense towers scanned the heavens, and what they found froze every commander in fear. Ships. Human ships. Not one, not 10, but hundreds. Warships larger than cities, their black hulls reflecting no light, their weapons glowing faintly like eyes of predators in the dark. The people of Drevos panicked. Families fled into shelters. Civilians tried to call for help. The Dominion's defense fleet rose from the colony's shipyards, 60 warships strong, ready to protect their world. But against the Terrans, 60 ships were nothing. The first blast came without warning. A single beam of light from a Terran battleship cut through 3 Dominion destroyers at once, slicing them apart in perfect silence. Explosions lit up the sky. The battle had begun. The Dominion fleet fought bravely, but their weapons barely scratched the Terran hulls. Plasma cannons, torpedoes, railguns, all fired at once, but their shots vanished against strange Terran shields that rippled like water. In return, the Terran warships fired with precision and cruelty. Each shot struck home, each beam slicing through metal and fire. The Dominion fleet crumbled in minutes. Commanders screamed, soldiers cried, but nothing slowed the storm. In less than half an hour, every Dominion ship above Drevos was gone. The colony looked up in horror. The sky was filled with human warships, their black shadows covering the stars. Then the message came. A voice, deep and cold, broadcast on every channel, every screen, every speaker. You broke the ban. Now you pay the price. This is Terran retribution. The words echoed in the hearts of millions. Some dropped to their knees, others shouted in despair. None could believe what was happening. The Terran fleet did not waste time. Massive cannons turned toward the planet. Energy beams struck the ground, melting defense towers into rivers of metal. Cities burned as fire rained from the sky. The mines exploded, the shipyards crumbled, and the proud colony was torn apart. Whole districts vanished in flashes of light. Civilians screamed as shelters collapsed. The Dominion's pride, its outer jewel, was being erased before their eyes. Admiral Carvos, far away on the Dominion homeworld, received the reports. His blood ran cold as he watched the transmissions. He saw his people die, his ships burn, his colony fall. Rage consumed him, but under that rage was fear, deep and undeniable. He had sworn to crush the humans, but the humans had struck first. And they had done it with a power no empire could match. Across the galaxy, others watched too. Spies and satellites carried images of Drevos burning. The other empires saw the Terran fleet and trembled. They saw the Dominion's colony destroyed and whispered to one another. The humans are not hiding anymore. They are awake. Fear spread like fire. No one dared to interfere. No one dared to help the Dominion. They knew the truth, the Terrans had chosen their target, and there was nothing anyone could do. On Drevos, the destruction was total. By dawn, the colony no longer existed. Where once stood cities and shipyards, now only ash and silence remained. The Terran fleet hovered above the ruins, silent and merciless. Then, as suddenly as they had come, they turned and vanished into hyperspace. No ships were left behind, no messages, no survivors to question. Only a single transmission echoed through the wreckage, sent across the galaxy for all to hear. This was only the beginning. You were warned. Obey the ban, or share the fate of Drevos. The message shook every empire. It was not just the Dominion who trembled now. Every ruler, every council, every soldier knew the truth. The Terrans had power beyond anything the galaxy had seen. And they were not merciful. They had waited in silence for centuries, but their silence was over. They were punishing those who dared to cross their border, and their punishment was death. In the Dominion Council chamber, chaos erupted. Some screamed for more fleets to be built. Others shouted that peace must be begged for. A few whispered that it was already too late, that no number of ships could save them. Pride fought against fear, but fear was winning. For the first time in history, the Dominion faced an enemy it could not bully, could not crush, could not intimidate. Humanity had returned, and humanity had come for revenge. And so the galaxy watched, breathless, as the fires of Drevos faded into ash. The silence returned, but it was no longer the silence of mystery. It was the silence of warning, a silence that screamed louder than any voice. The Terrans had spoken. The ban was real. And the retribution had only begun. The destruction of Drevos shook the galaxy, but the Dominion refused to surrender. Their pride would not allow it. On their homeworld of Vale Prime, the Council gathered in fear and rage. Some demanded peace, others screamed for vengeance, but Admiral Carvos silenced them all with his voice of steel. "We will not bow to humans," he declared. "They are strong, but they are not gods. We will summon every fleet, every soldier, every weapon. The Dominion will not fall." His words stirred the Council, but deep down they all felt the same dread. Drevos had been a fortress, and it had fallen in a single night. If Drevos could be erased, then nowhere was safe. Across the skies of Vale Prime, shipyards worked without rest. New battleships were rushed into service, old cruisers repaired, even civilian ships armed for war. The Dominion was preparing for the greatest battle in its history. But far away, in the dark of space, the Terrans were already moving. They had not come to scare. They had not come to send warnings. They had come to end the Dominion. The first signs came as silence. Outposts at the edge of Dominion space went dark one by one. No distress calls, no explosions, only silence. Patrol fleets vanished without a trace. The Dominion sent scouts to investigate, but none returned. Carvos clenched his fists when the reports came. He knew the truth. The Terrans were closing in, and they were doing it with a precision that showed centuries of planning. Then, one night, the skies of Vale Prime burned. It began with a shadow that spread across the stars. The people looked up and gasped. Hundreds of black shapes appeared above the planet, larger than mountains, their hulls blotting out the heavens. The Terran fleet had arrived. No warning this time. No words. Only war. The Dominion Defense Fleet rose to meet them, thousands of ships forming a wall of fire around their homeworld. Admiral Carvos stood at the command deck of his flagship, the Iron Fong, his eyes locked on the enemy. He felt no fear now, only rage. "This is our home," he roared. "Fight until your last breath." His fleet obeyed, unleashing a storm of plasma and missiles. The sky lit with explosions. But the Terrans did not break. Their warships glided forward like silent predators, their shields shimmering as Dominion weapons struck uselessly. Then they fired. Beams of pure energy cut through entire squadrons at once. A single Terran super dreadnought destroyed dozens of Dominion cruisers with one sweeping blast. The sky turned into a graveyard. The Dominion fleet fought bravely, but every clash was one-sided. Their numbers melted like ice in fire. On the ground, the people of Vale Prime screamed as pieces of burning ships rained down into cities. Entire districts caught fire. Panic spread as Terran drop pods pierced the atmosphere, slamming into the surface with thunder. Out of them came human war machines, tall metal giants, armored soldiers, weapons that hummed with energy. They marched with calm precision, crushing resistance with ease. Dominion soldiers fought back, but their rifles barely scratched Terran armor. Admiral Carvos refused to retreat. He pushed his flagship into the heart of the battle, firing every weapon at the largest Terran ship. For a moment, it seemed to work. The giant's shield flickered. Dominion crews cheered. But then the Terran ship answered. A single blast tore through the Iron Fong, splitting it in half. The cheers turned to screams. The flagship exploded, and with it, the Dominion's last hope. The battle lasted only hours, but it felt like centuries. By dawn, the Dominion fleet was gone, burned into wreckage. Vale Prime lay in ruins, its cities burning, its skies filled with Terran ships. The Council tried to flee, but their transports were destroyed before they could leave orbit. No mercy was given, no leaders spared. The Terrans moved with cold purpose. They were not here to conquer. They were here to erase. The galaxy watched in horror. Spy satellites captured the fall of Vale Prime, the Dominion capital reduced to ash. No empire dared to interfere. No one sent fleets to help. They all knew it would be suicide. And so, the most powerful empire of the galaxy fell in a single night, destroyed by the force it had mocked for centuries. The Terrans had risen from silence, and they had burned the Dominion to the ground. As the smoke cleared, a single message echoed across the stars. The same voice that had spoken at Drevos now spoke again. Calm, steady, merciless. This is the fate of those who break the ban. Terran space is sacred. Remember this, or share their end. The words spread like wildfire. Every ruler trembled, every council whispered in fear. Humanity had not only defended their border. They had destroyed an empire. On the surface of Vale Prime, among the ruins of once great cities, Terran banners were raised. Not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as a warning. The humans did not care for wealth or territory. They cared only for respect, for silence, for the one law they had always demanded: never enter Terran space. And now, after the fall of the Dominion, no one in the galaxy doubted that law again. The galaxy was changed forever. The silence around Terran borders was no longer just a mystery. It was a graveyard. And every empire knew that if they dared to cross the line, the same darkness would come for them, swift and merciless. Humanity had returned, and they had shown the truth. In the galaxy of empires and armies, only one law mattered now: the law of the Terrans. The fall of the Dominion spread across the galaxy like fire through dry fields. One night, the proudest empire stood tall. The next, it was ash. No survivors, no fleet, no council. Vale Prime, once a jewel of power, was now a graveyard. Every world in the galaxy received the same message, the cold voice of the Terrans repeating their warning. This is the fate of those who break the ban. Terran space is sacred. Remember this, or share their end. Those words echoed in every palace, every war council, every chamber of power. No one could ignore them. No one dared. The smaller empires were the first to tremble. Kingdoms that had once whispered about expanding toward Earth now erased those thoughts from their maps. Armies that had been trained to invade were quietly disbanded. Leaders spoke in hushed tones, terrified of being overheard, as if even speaking of Terran space would bring destruction. They feared not only the humans' weapons but also their silence. For centuries, Terran space had been untouched, a forbidden region of stars. Now everyone understood why. The great empires were shaken even more. The Zyrek hegemony, once a rival of the Dominion, held emergency councils for weeks. Their generals demanded new fleets, but their rulers refused. They had seen the footage of Drevos and Vale Prime. They knew no fleet could stand against Terran firepower. The Valtari Confederation went even further. They signed treaties declaring Terran space as eternal no-go zones, marked with red warnings on every star chart. Merchant captains whispered stories of ships that strayed too close and never returned. But it was not just fear that spread, it was doubt. For the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy realized its strongest powers were not the mighty empires, but the humans. And humanity did not act like other powers. They did not conquer the Dominion to rule its planets. They left it in ruins, abandoned, a scar in the galaxy. This was not war for territory. This was punishment. That made them even more terrifying. No one could predict what they wanted, because they wanted nothing but silence. On shattered Dominion worlds, survivors whispered about the Terrans. They spoke of ships as large as mountains, weapons that cut through fleets like paper, soldiers who moved like machines. But more than the weapons, they remembered the eyes of the Terrans, cold, calm, merciless. The humans did not kill out of hate. They killed out of law, as if enforcing an ancient rule that the galaxy had forgotten. To the survivors, that was worse than hatred. Hatred could be reasoned with. But law was unbreakable. In hidden chambers, spies and scholars debated the truth of the Terrans. Some claimed humans were not like other species at all. They said Earth had been exiled long ago because of secrets the galaxy feared. Others believed humans had unlocked weapons from forgotten ages, technology older than the empires themselves. A few whispered something darker, that humans had never been weak, only patient, waiting in silence for the day someone broke the ban. Whatever the truth, one fact was clear: no one dared test them again. Merchants changed their routes, making wide circles around Terran borders. Explorers erased entire regions from their maps. Children across the stars grew up with stories of Terran warships blotting out the sky. The silence of Terran space became a legend, not of mystery, but of terror. To enter was death. To challenge was ruin. Among the ruins of the Dominion, other empires sent quiet scouts, searching for survivors, for answers. Most never returned. Those that did brought back chilling images: cities still smoking, battlefields littered with wreckage, human symbols carved into stone. The message was always the same: never cross Terran space. Some captains swore they saw Terran ships still watching from the shadows, ensuring the lesson was never forgotten. Admirals across the galaxy grew restless. They were trained for war, for conquest, but now they faced an enemy they could not touch. Politicians feared rebellion from within, as citizens questioned why their leaders had mocked Earth for centuries. Fear of Terrans became law itself. Entire cultures shifted. Songs, stories, even prayers began to speak of the humans as dark watchers, silent judges of the galaxy. On Earth, the Terrans remained silent once more. Their fleets withdrew behind their borders, their ships vanishing back into the shadow of their own stars. They did not send ambassadors, did not demand tribute, did not claim new worlds. They simply disappeared again, as if nothing had happened. This silence terrified the galaxy even more. No one knew when, or if, the humans would strike again. Some believed the Terrans would return only if provoked. Others feared they might one day decide the galaxy itself was too dangerous to be left alone. Rumors spread of human fleets larger than planets, hidden deep in the black. Stories grew of weapons that could shatter suns, of armies waiting in endless sleep. No one could prove them, but no one dared to laugh either. The laughter had died with the Dominion. The galaxy had changed forever. Where once the Dominion had ruled with fear, now humanity ruled with silence. No crown, no throne, no empire, just a warning written in fire. The ban on Terran space was no longer a simple rule. It was law, enforced with destruction beyond imagination. The galaxy had seen the cost of breaking it, and no one would ever forget.